Good morning. It's Bernard Nomberg with another episode of NOMBERG LAW Live. We come to you every Tuesday at 10 a.m. And I got my buddy Joel DiLorenzo. Joel's a Birmingham attorney. Good morning, Joel.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I appreciate it.
And we appreciate you being here. And we've got some really good stuff to talk about today. Joel is a friend of the firm, a friend of mine and David's, and he does class and large litigation involving consumer products, and that's what we're really going to hit into a little bit this morning. Joel, I know that there's always news about different products that are in the news being recalled, or that there's news about different scientific studies, and it's all in the idea of keeping the public safe. When you put a product out there, it needs to be a safe product, and I know that's the kind of work that you do, and we appreciate you looking after all of us who use those products. But before we get into those cases that we're going to talk about, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your firm.
Well, originally from Nashville, Tennessee, moved to Alabama, attended Auburn University, moved up here in Birmingham in 1997, attended Cumberland Law School. Been practicing 18 years now. I've had my own firm for the last 10, and like you said, we primarily do mass tort litigation involving dangerous, unsafe drugs or unsafe, dangerous products.
Okay. And tell us, in the past, we'll get into the products that you've dealt with in a few minutes, but tell us what are we talking about when you say you get into consumer items that are bad or end up discovering through scientific studies or litigation, whatever it is.
Yes.
What are we talking about here? Just as an overall.
Well, I generally try to split them into two different things: medical devices or implants, or dangerous drugs. Okay. Everybody knows the FDA, and we hopefully depend and rely on the FDA to kind of be the gatekeeper, the monitor, if you will, before products can get on the market. And unfortunately, the FDA doesn't always do a complete and thorough job. So when a product or drug enters the market, sometimes it is incumbent upon us to make sure that product is in fact safe for the eventual consumer or patient that's getting the implant.
Where can a person, let's say that they've purchased a product, and we'll just say it's a cleaning product for their home. Where can a person go to read about products to confirm whether let's say they have a small child in their home and they're using these chemicals that are meant to clean. Where can someone go just in general to read, to become more informed about those products?
Well, the FDA has a fairly extensive website that you can go and learn about the different chemical makeup of any particular product. However, if you go to the company's website, you will get very general information as well. And obviously, if it's a medical implant, some type of device, your own personal doctor is always the best source of information, without a doubt.
Okay, and FDA being the Food and Drug Administration.
Correct.
And we'll put their website in the comments section. But we're not just talking about consumer items such as cleaning products. We're also talking about medical devices.
Right.
In addition to your doctor, are there any other sources of reliable medical information that you can go to read about whatever the product may be?
Well, in terms of when a product enters the market, the FDA has basically a consumer complaints division, so to speak, and they post it on the website. Depending on the number of issues or complaints of a particular product, that generally is the thing that kind of raises a red flag to us as mass tort attorneys often, that if one particular product is getting an excessive number of similar complaints, that's when we always try to take a closer look and see if there's anything we can do to maybe look into that a little deeper, figure out what the problem is, and maybe see what the company overlooked, or perhaps the FDA overlooked when they were doing their initial clearance approval process.
Okay. Let's talk. I know we've got kind of two different items we're going to talk about.
Okay.
What are the two products that we're going to explore for the next couple of minutes?
Okay. The two main products that we are focused on right now as our firm are hernia mesh implants and the Roundup litigation.
Okay. And the hernia mesh, what in general, we'll talk about both in
Sure.
detail, but what is the hernia mesh implant?
Hernia mesh, most people have heard of hernia mesh. It's been on the market for 20 plus years, approximately. And there are many, many, many different types of hernia mesh, many different manufacturers, and those manufacturers have several different types of model hernia meshes, if you will. Now, I am not saying that every single hernia mesh out there is defective and you need to rush to your doctor to get it pulled out.
Sure.
But there are several, and this goes to what I was discussing earlier as far as the FDA approval process. There are several particular manufacturers and models that we are looking at which have been causing serious conditions in patients implanted with that particular product.
Okay, and again, we're not talking about all of the hernia mesh products that are out there. We're just talking about specific ones, and we'll put in the comments section right after the interview here what type of products, what companies that we're looking at. Additionally, we'll also put Joel's contact information in there, and if you're watching this live or if you're watching it later on, just put your comments or your questions in the comments section. We'll make sure that those questions do make it to Joel. And while we're going live, it's as we're going through this, please send us your questions. That's why we're here. That's why Joel's talking with us. He's the expert or one of the experts in this type of case that we're dealing with. And we want to make sure that questions are answered. Now, Joel, let's stick on the hernia mesh cases and right now. And give us, if you can, just give us a short backdrop, a little background information.
Sure. Hernia mesh, by definition, hernia mesh implants are used when someone has suffered a hernia and it's implanted. It's a polypropylene mesh, which is essentially, as most people can figure out, it's a synthetic plastic type of mesh. Now, the problem obviously is that this plastic polypropylene mesh is being put in to, attach to the organs and tissues inside your body. That is not a natural product, and oftentimes the body can reject that product, and that's when the problems occur. It just by the body function, oftentimes these hernia meshes can cause adhesion between tissue and organs, which obviously if that happens, that can become a very serious medical problem very quickly. Secondly, polypropylene mesh, being a foreign agent in the body, it can degrade after several years, and if it does degrade, it shrinks. And when it shrinks, it can cause bowel obstructions, incredible insufferable pain, which would require generally having the doctor go back in and remove it. So it can cause a litany of problems that don't always appear right away. A lot of people have asked me, will I know within a month or 2 months if I've got a problem? No, a lot of times just due to just depending on how your body reacts to it, it can take 5 years or longer before you start feeling the effects of whatever problems it may be causing.
Are there particular company or manufacturers that have recalled certain products? Yes.
The only company that has actually recalled its own product is Ethicon. And Ethicon is a subsidiary of Johnson & Johnson. Ethicon has a particular hernia mesh on the market known as Physio Mesh. It voluntarily pulled its own product off the market just due to, like I mentioned earlier, the high number of complaints that the FDA was getting about this product. There is another, there are actually two others that have, two other companies that have gotten into post-market approval issues with the FDA. Atrium has a particular model known as the CQR model that received a Class 2 recall. And then thirdly, a mesh manufacturer named Bard is facing a number of lawsuits regarding some of its products.
And Joel, how can people find out if they have a hernia mesh that's been recalled?
Yes.
Is there a place to go to research that or to find out if their product is part of the recall?
The first and best and only place I would recommend is if you can contact your doctor's office, whoever did the original implant. that information will always be included, is required to be included in whatever operative report the doctor or surgeon prepared at the time of your implant surgery. And based on that, if you have a problem understanding exactly, because again, sometimes the doctor's handwriting is about like my handwriting sometimes. It may not be super clear. If you have a question, please call us and we'll help you figure out if you do have one that maybe we're investigating.
So your doctor's office can tell you, or you can look in the operative report, the typed up report. It'll
Correct.
say the name of the manufacturer.
Yes.
And let's say now we know we have the name of our manufacturer.
Yes.
Then what do we do with that information?
Well, it will have, generally what they will have in every operative report is actually what's known as the product ID label sticker. And that actually comes literally off the box that comes from the manufacturer to the doctor in the operative room. That goes onto your operative report. So you will have everything you need to know in terms of manufacturer and the model and the make of that particular mesh that's inside you right there on the operative report.
So let's say we have all that information, and then we find out that our product, in fact, is one of the recalled products.
Yes.
But right now, we're not having any symptoms. We're not having any issues.
Absolutely.
Are there any recommended steps at that point?
I would go and speak with your doctor about it just as a precautionary measure. Like I said, there was actually a study in 2016 of about 3,000 hernia mesh implant patients that had, they studied and followed this study group, and a third of those did not start having problems for 5 to 6 years after implants. So it's not going to be an overnight problem where you wake up one night and suddenly it's an issue. It can take several years before you notice. So again, the first thing I tell all of my clients is do what your doctor tells you. I'm the lawyer. I didn't go to medical school. There's a reason your doctor is in that position. He is the medical expert in terms of any issues. Now, if you are experiencing problems, that's something you need to address with him and explain in detail to make sure he has a full understanding in order to provide the best recommendation for the treatment.
And these issues, the recalls, the problems with these mesh implants, these are not the patient or the client's doctor who's created these problems. It's the manufacturer.
That's correct. We are not naming any doctors or surgeons in any lawsuits.
So that's actually a question. Are you suing doctors concerning these cases?
That's a great question. And I get that question a lot. No, the doctors and the surgeons that have implanted these, our position is, and I think the doctors would agree, that they were as misled as the patients that are actually getting these hernia meshes. They were misled by the companies and the manufacturers. The companies and manufacturers have sent their particular sales reps to the doctors or surgeons' offices and told the doctors how safe and wonderful these hernia mesh products are. And as we found out in many cases, these products can cause very, very serious, potentially life-threatening injuries.
So talk to us a little bit about what type of injuries and medical conditions are being seen as a result of the defective product.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, the hernia mesh products, just by nature of being a foreign plastic substance input into the body, it can actually cause the skin tissue and organs to bind together. It's incredibly painful, potentially life-threatening. The doctor has to go in and separate that, and oftentimes it's, once you try to separate tissue that has actually bonded to the organ, it creates horrendous scar tissue or more serious injuries, bowel obstruction, just general pain. But like I said, the adhesion between the tissue and organ is the most serious, and we've seen that in many cases.
And if people who are having these issues, if they have a recalled product, or if they're having medical adverse problems because of the product, and they want to seek legal advice,
yes,
that's what your office is handling right now.
That's correct. That's what we do.
And if folks want to call you or get in touch with you, what's your contact information?
You can reach us. We have a office here in Birmingham. The number is 205-212-9988. or you can email me, which we'll put up at the end of the
Yeah, we'll put all of Joel's and his firm's contact information in the contacts. Now, we're based in Birmingham, but people who may be watching this who have this situation, do they have to be Alabama residents to get in touch with you to pursue a claim if there's one that warrants it?
Not at all. This is a national mass tort type litigation. So we've got clients in Alabama, we've got clients in Mississippi, and we actually represent a handful of clients in the state of Florida. So it is not, these cases are not confined, our practice is not confined to simply the central Alabama area at all. This is a case that has a national impact on clients and patients and individuals all over the country.
Well, let's talk about that. We have another question is, what's the difference between a class action lawsuit and a mass tort case?
That's a great question. Everybody knows the term class actions. Class actions, and let me do this in kind of two parts. Class actions are when you've got a class representative, an individual that represents a class of people that have all been essentially harmed or injured in the same way. And one way to maybe, commonly used is if someone bought a Ford truck and everybody had a bad carburetor that bought this particular Ford truck. Everybody in that class would get a new carburetor. That would be the damages, and that would be the remedy for those damages. Bad carburetor, new carburetor. It's one lawsuit with one class representative representing all the people that own the Ford truck. Mass tort litigation is different. It involves generally the same defendant, but everybody has their very own lawsuit. If Bill Smith has a hernia mesh product that's defective, he has his own lawsuit. If Sally Jones has a hernia mesh implant that had to be removed, she has her own lawsuit. It would be the same defendant, the same manufacturer of that hernia mesh, but everybody has their own individual damages, and presumably everybody would have their own individual trial to determine what a judge or jury thought of those damages and a likely remedy for those.
Well, let's talk about the litigation. Is there litigation going on involving mesh hernia implants?
There are. These have been centralized in what's known as MDLs, which are multi-district litigation. Those are very helpful to both the plaintiffs, the clients with the defective hernia meshes that either have them or have had them removed, and the defendant for this reason. The multi-district litigation consolidates all, and I'll use the Ethicon Physio Mesh as an example. All of the Ethicon Physio Mesh cases around the country have been consolidated in the Northern District of Georgia Federal Court. Why did they do that? For this reason. It would serve no purpose to have 50 different judges or courts around the country ruling on the same issue and coming up with 50 different decisions. It would drag this on for 15 or 20 years because everybody would be fighting over which decision was right. We've got one judge in the Northern District of Georgia that is responsible for the entire national load. Now, that is only during the course of the discovery process. Once we get through the discovery process, which is where we ask them questions, they ask us questions, we get their internal documents, etc.
That's the exchange of information.
Exactly.
Prior to trial.
Then the case would be sent back to the original court where it would have originally been filed. So for instance, if you are a Birmingham resident, your case would be transferred to the MDL in Georgia, and then if it were to be tried, it would come back to Alabama. So you would be trying it here in Alabama.
Because there's so much commonality between all of the parties. You could
Correct.
be living in the state of Washington. You could be living anywhere.
Yes.
As long as you meet the qualifications, you're part of the MDL in Northern District of Georgia, but then wherever you filed your original lawsuit, it would come back for the trying of the case.
Yes, that's right. And the other, there's the atrium and then the BARD. The atrium, I believe, is in New Hampshire, and then the BARD is in the Southern District of Ohio. Every manufacturer has their own MDL, and again, it expedites, it streamlines the process to make sure you have a consistency of rulings and make sure that everything moves as expeditiously as possible.
Now, are there deadlines for individuals to make known to lawyers or others that they may have potential claims?
Yes, and it depends on and without getting into too much legalese, every state has basically their own discovery rules. And in Alabama, generally, if you have a claim, we want to bring a case within 2 years, which is the applicable statute of limitations. We want to bring a case within 2 years of when you discovered the injury. So for instance, in a hernia mesh case, if you had it put in and then 5 years later went to your doctor and he said to you as the hernia mesh patient, you have got an issue, we need to take it out. From that point forward, 2 years from that date would be what we consider to be the applicable 2-year time clock running. So you've got to get your lawsuit filed or the court can dismiss it because you might have missed your statute.
Let me give you an example. Let's say you had surgery, implanted the implant was put in 2014.
Okay.
And you're in 2018 just finding out, hey, there's litigation, there's things going on. Maybe I ought to get in touch with my doctor. I haven't had any problems.
Sure.
But then I go to my doctor and you and the doctor look up, hey, you've got a barred implant.
Yes.
That's part of litigation that's up in New Hampshire. Then what?
In that scenario, we would need to find out if the doctor determined there was any reason to remove it. And if he said no at this point, because again, this is the doctor's decision. We want this to be the doctor's decision. We don't want to give any advice on whether or not a mesh needs to come in or stay put.
Mm-hmm.
If the doctor advises you, it looks good for now, just please continue to allow that doctor to monitor it because it's good after 3 years or 4 years does not mean that after 5 or 6 it cannot. Now, if the doctor says it needs to come out, you need to take that very seriously. I've had clients who went through the original hernia implant surgery, and it's not a fun surgery to go through. It's a surgery. Nobody wants to have surgery. So a lot of them, having already gone through the implant surgery, are very, very reluctant to want to go through a removal surgery.
Sure.
I don't blame them. Nobody wants to have one, especially not 2 surgeries. However, as I discussed earlier, it can lead to very, very, very serious health, life-threatening issues possibly if you don't. So if a doctor tells you that you need to have it removed, take that very seriously. Don't try to tough it out and just live with it because it's not going to get better.
At the very least, get a second opinion.
Absolutely.
But make a prudent, wise decision based on your own body and your own decisions should be taken very seriously.
Yes.
And if you have questions about this, and we're going to pivot now to the other product, but if you have any questions, any concerns, get in touch with Joel, get in touch with me. We'll make sure that any questions that you have about the products are answered. We may not have the answers, but we can hopefully tell you how to find out those answers because it's your health we're talking about. Joel, let's now pivot. Let's move on to Roundup.
Yes.
Give us a little bit of background about Roundup. What are we talking about?
Roundup, as everybody knows, everybody at some point in their life, if they have a garden or a yard or a lawn, have probably used Roundup. Roundup has been around for many years. It's a weed killer. You can purchase it at Home Depot or Lowe's or any other general store, and it's a all-purpose weed killer. Now the problem that we've alleged with Roundup is that it contains certain chemicals that if you are exposed to that particular chemical over a certain amount of time, it can actually cause certain types of cancer, including non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
And Roundup is still a product that's out there today.
It is. And it's, like I said, it's used in all capacities, all industries. It can be used on golf courses, greens, professional landscapers, everything down to just the casual once a month gardener that you might have at home.
That'd be me.
Right.
In fact, this weekend I saw a bottle of it in my basement with other chemicals and things. Now Roundup has been in the market for many years, And it's who currently owns or manufactures it?
Monsanto is the manufacturer of Roundup, and Monsanto was originally purchased by Bayer. Everybody knows Bayer aspirin, Bayer. It's a huge company. Recently purchased Monsanto, but Monsanto is the corporation that has produced and manufactured Roundup, put it on the market for many years.
And is there currently litigation going on involving Roundup?
There is. It's similar to what we discussed earlier. It's been all consolidated into the same MDL in California, and the first trial in the country went to trial in August, and it resulted in a favorable verdict for the plaintiff. And basically the jury was asked whether or not you think, based on the evidence presented, you think that the Roundup that the plaintiff, in this case, he was a groundskeeper for educational and elementary system, was using it on a very, very regular basis, whether or not they thought that the Roundup was the cause of his non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And based on the evidence that they had in front of them, they said absolutely yes, we do think it was, and they returned a verdict for the plaintiff.
And the harmful effects being alleged either in that case or that is being looked at in other cases consists of what type of medical damages or injuries?
We are looking primarily at non-Hodgkin's lymphoma as the primary diagnosis. There may be some other types of cancers, and we want to, let me say this, it's a great question. We want to talk to anybody that has used Roundup on a consistent basis for an extended amount of time.
At their work?
At their work, yes.
Okay.
The causation that we have to prove as attorneys to a jury would be that this product caused this injury. And from what our own scientific experts have said, it needs to be some type of extended exposure, meaning in the gentleman that was the first case to go to trial, he had regular exposure over the course of years. He was using it on a daily basis in an industrial setting. So it's a very unfortunate case. He's 46 years old, and his own doctors have said, you're not going to get better. He is going to die. And it's tragic. And the jury said that, yes, it was due to his use of Roundup.
So if you work in an environment that you use Roundup, and you have been for an extended period of time, whether it's a couple of years or many years for your work, and you've been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma,
yes,
those are the two biggest factors that would lead that if you're inclined to do so, that you'd need to get in touch with Joel to talk about your situation, to talk about whether or not you need to be tested or have your medical information analyzed to see if there is a connection, a causation between the work and exposure that you had with the product with the medical condition that you have. Now, if somebody thinks that they are fit into that category of those things, what's the next step that they should do, Joel?
They can contact our law firm, and we will meet with them. And again, due to the injury that we're alleging, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a lot of people are unable to get out of their home, or some of them are actually still confined to the hospital for treatment. We can meet them at their convenience, at the location of their choosing. They don't need to come to us. We understand. We try to make the first meeting as convenient as possible to the patient, just to sit, talk, let me hear and understand what they've been going through, and kind of get a game plan moving forward with their best interest in mind.
And are these free consultations?
Oh, absolutely, yes. We'll meet with them. And again, as you know full well, the lawyer in 2018, it's not a 9-to-5 job. It's a 9-to-whenever job. So I have met many clients on weekends. Sometimes that is the best time for them. It's on a Saturday afternoon. If that's convenient for them, I make it convenient for me.
And typically, how long do these initial meetings take?
It can take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes to an hour. It just depends on how in depth we get, and
Sure.
just and just basically, I go with at the client's pace. Some of them are unable to, due to their not Hodgkin's lymphoma. Some of them are not able to sit and talk for a certain amount of time. So we do it at their convenience. It's a very relaxed atmosphere, and we just sit and talk, and you tell me what happened to you.
And again, if you live in the state of Oregon, if you live in anywhere else, get in touch with this guy. He'll do Skype, he'll do FaceTime with you. You don't have to travel to talk about these things, or you can just get on the phone and have a talk. Joel, I sure appreciate all of the information that you've shared. This is it's serious information. It's in depth. There's so much more to it. If you have questions or concerns, Joel, how do people get in touch with you again?
They can call me at 205-212-9988 or email me, and that's joel@dilorenzo-law.com.
And we'll put all of that in the comments section. We've been talking about hernia mesh implants. We've been talking about the Roundup chemical product, both of which are subject to litigation, both of which have been known to cause medical problems, serious medical problems in individuals who have either had the surgery for the implant or had long exposures to using the products. Joel, I sure appreciate you coming in today and sharing your expertise and knowledge with us.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope I was able to maybe help some people that might be listening.
Certainly, and most of y'all will be watching this on replays. We'll post it in all of our usual social media outlets as well as Joel's firms. Just get in touch with him. It's not going to hurt. He'll answer some questions. It'll take a little bit of stress while he gives you some of the answers you're looking for. Again, thank you guys for spending some time with us on NOMBERG Law Live. We come to you every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Pacific. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you again next Tuesday.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.